Miss, food is getting cold. You should eat. Cover up the food. I'll take it myself later. Okay, miss, as you say. The moment that maid left, her stomach growled, indicating her hunger. Throwing her phone aside, she dropped her head back on the couch, sighing for 100 of times now. Why I'm caring for that crackhead? I should eat already. She directly went towards the covered dishes and started to serve the food into the plate, but stopped in the middle. Does it even make sense? Me caring for him? Squishing her eyes tightly, she left the bowl and covered it in anger. She stood there with her poker face for some good minutes. He's messing up with my mind now. She smiled in pain. Let's go to my loving husband then. I knew he'll start shouting as soon as he'll find me there, and me being the most stupid person still going to confront him. I was so into my thoughts, but suddenly there was such music that reached in my ears, making me frown. No doubt that music was playing in his room. I don't think he's someone to listen some songs. I chuckled and taking slow steps went towards his room's door. Twisting the doorknob while trying her best to not make any sound, she slowly entered inside. Everything was looking fine until I spotted his figure sitting on the ground beside the bed. I looked at him all confused, wrapping his hands around his legs. He was hiding his face. She whispered his name. She tilted her head in confusion and thought to leave from there. She knew that if she'll interfere, no good will happen. Without uttering another word, she left from there. Closing the door again, her back rested on the door as she looked down. Habitually, she didn't felt her heart at ease. What happened with him? Was he sad or what? Not to lie, but I want to go and see him. She turned around and pushed the door a little, peeking inside. And that's when she heard not so audible sob ringing her ears. Being perplexed, she blinked her eyes twice. According to her, he was the last person who will ever cry. She felt more curious and again went inside his room. Letting my fear out, I directly went towards him. He didn't seem to notice my presence, as I was standing right in front of him, hoping for him to raise his face and look at me. Minutes passed, and he was still in the same posture. And this time, she heard some sobs time to time, but doing nothing, she just gulped. Finally getting tired of it, she slowly got on her knees and looked at him. She whispered his name nervously. Now his little sobs were hurting me somehow. I couldn't take it anymore. With my trembling hands, I caressed his head. But to my surprise, he flinched and said something that came in whisper from his mouth. I was not the one who played this. I didn't make any noise. I'm not lying. Her eyes didn't take a second and softened. She was not able to believe that this was the same person who was shouting like a devil before. Nothing came in my mind at that time, but one thing that I knew was that he was traumatized about something. I didn't know why, but this scene somehow gave me nostalgia. It felt like I have gone through this. No one will hurt you. Don't be scared. Please believe me, I'm not lying. I didn't did anything. I know, and I believe you. She smiled sadly. She tried to console him, but the same words came out of his mouth every time. She was not irritated, nor angry. Having a small smile on her face, she made him look towards her. Her hands were cupping his cheeks. I was hit by sudden agony, seeing how vulnerable he looked. His closed eyes, red tint spread on his nose, and his low whimper. I was not sure if this was him or a completely different person. Please believe me, it's not my fault. She smiled sadly. Stop crying. No one will dare to hurt you, and I'm here. I believe you. But he will be so mad. Saying that, he cried his heart out. She didn't budge and kept devouring his state through her eyes. Capturing his hand in her, she softly caressed his both hands, like she was telling him that someone is there with him. No one is coming here. You are safe. But I'm scared. Once in 100 times, he replied her with a different answer. Caressing his hand, she took other hand towards his face and softly rubbed her palm on his cheek. What are you scared of now? I can't see anything. There's nothing, he cried. There's nothing to be scared of. You can feel me. I'm here. He tried to take his hands forward to reach me while sobbing like a lost child. At that time there was no one, namely Beast or a Mafia. All I saw was a man looking as terrified as ever, with only innocence filled in him. Doesn't matter how bad he treated her. She left all those things behind and embraced him in her arms. Now you believe? I'm here. She smiled. Just be here. Take me with you. One side she was softly hugging him, and he was the one having a tight hold around her. She didn't budge for minutes, but then realized how manly his arms were. It somehow made her blush feeling his huge hands on her small waist. Will you get up? I'll not leave you. Then don't leave me. Floor is giving chills, so get on bed. Holding on her, he stood up all nervous. She laid him to the bed as both sat there. Without wasting a minute, he again wrapped his arms around her, hiding his face in her crook. Let's sleep, please. Her eyes widened. I will sleep here? Everything was already making me confused. Is he the same man, or he's suffering from some disorder? Getting me out of my thoughts, I felt his tears falling on my neck. Stop crying. Let's sleep, she smiled. He nodded in her crook, making her body feel tingling sensation. You have to get back so we can sleep. He slowly got back and let her made him lay down. As she made him lay down, that's when she saw him opening his eyes, though it was still dark for him. Come to me now. It was my first time looking at his eyes carefully. The eyes which hold only darkness but still sparkled in the moonlight. Taking me surprised, I saw not so visible white hue present in his orbs. Now that I clearly look at him, nothing came in my mind except one word. That was beautiful. I was so into him that didn't hurt anything for a second. Where are you? His voice cracked. I'm here. Don't worry. She smiled. Come and sleep with. I almost forgot. You should have your dinner first. He didn't say anything and slightly nodded before facing opposite direction. She frowned and decided to ask him. You'll be fine here? He said nothing, just nodded his head a little. Taking last glance on his figure, she left towards the kitchen. Getting inside the room, but there was a slight air of dejection in her. So far, it was all contradictory for her. Cruel beast to an innocent soul. She herself didn't know what was exactly happening. Nonetheless, she digested all of it at once. Keeping the tray aside, she went towards him and encountered his red puffed face with closed eyes. Totally oblivious. I knew that I was smiling while adoring him. He was looking so adorable. Not to mention, but seeing him like this, I eventually wanted to protect him from whatever he was afraid of. She felt that urge to caress his soft cheek, which was carrying tear stains on it. Giving in, she took her hand towards him and rested her hand on his cheek, but suddenly, don't you think you are crossing your lines? She startled. Take yourself away, or if I'll do it, then it will be worst. Too stunned to speak, she felt anguished inside her heart. Just some minutes back, he saw the most vulnerable person she ever met, and now listening his wounding words, unknowingly tears stood in her eyes. But can you stop being stubborn and leave? He shouted. Fine, you are so cruel. I hate you. Not reacting, he again covered himself. Then he closed his eyes and tears streamed down his face.
Thanks for coming this long way. Hope you liked it. Love you.